Hey there, everybody. What's up? Welcome back to the Pauper Premier League, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. and Wizards of the Coast. I am Emma Partlow. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm Kendra Smith, the Maverick Girl. I'm here subbing in for Emma. Emma is sick, so...
Well, yeah. You're doing a fine job. You ran the table tonight with Boggles.
Yeah, 1 second.
So... this is setting up a really interesting match tonight. So Kendra's been playing for Emma. Mm-hmm. Emma was 0-3 in her first split, 3-0 this split, so moves into a tie for second place with me, also at 3-3. We have two players at 4-2. That's Brian DeMars and Brian Koval. Right now, we have another player who can go 4-2 in Chris Van Meter. Joseph has a chance to knock Chris back into a tie for second at 3-3. However, according to Joseph, his Elves matchup is horrendous. And I can kind of understand why.
Yeah, so normally, like, the Bant deck just kind of takes too much time to set up. In addition, like, you're going Temporal Spring on, like, okay, you're Temporal Spring and Forest. And then what the Elves player says, I got a Quirion Ranger here. I'm going to pick up that Forest.
Yeah, I think it's not as bad as Joseph thinks it is, but I don't think it's a very good matchup. Right. The lack of actual removal is going to matter quite a bit.
Right. It really largely depends on just how quickly CVM is going to be able to go off. If he's able to go off like right out of the gate, like if he goes land, elf, and then the next turn goes for like a Priest of Titania into like a Quirion Ranger into Lead the Stampede, and he'll just take over that game completely.
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of what Elves does. We saw that in the match with Evan, where he just kind of had one land and it was fine. Everything's fine. I think Brian Koval pointed out in the chat that Evan lost that game on turn 1 when he didn't scred the Mana Elf.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what?
He even came pretty close, to me. He actually just barely missed lethal. It would have to been exactly perfect. But it does sound like we are ready to go. So let's go down to the match area. Let's see what we got going on here. We got some excellent games of match. Oh, not quite there just yet. 1 second, everybody.
We have our hands.
We got hands. We're almost there.
And it looks like neither player has a great hand.
There it is. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. So what have we got here?
Well, it looks like Joseph took a mulligan.
Yeah, and Chris's
but he's on the play.
Chris's hand, and that doesn't matter here, to be honest. Chris's hand is unreal. So what we're going to see here is we can go, he's going to do the Elvish Mystic. The next turn, I think the actual smart play is to go for the Timberwatch Elf, just outright run it out. Chris has enough lands that you could just go for it all the way.
So to an outsider, someone who doesn't play a ton of Elves, but who has played it, Krista's hand looked eminently fair, or rather it looked eminently fair until he got that Birchlore Ranger, which that just means...
Birchlore is unreal right now.
So why is it so good? Besides the fact that it generates all this mana very quickly.
So obviously it actually it doesn't just generate like good mana with, like he play the Birchlore after the Vanguard and the Vanguard goes out. But now instead of just running out the Timberwatch Elf and just trying to go for quick attacks like that, now Chris can actually just pump that Vanguard very quickly to the point that it's actually just better to pump that Vanguard as opposed to just running out the Timberwatch Elf. And we're seeing the payoff here. And especially right now, because now Chris is going to be able to go for this Huntmaster.
So my question is, how good then is this Temporal Spring? Because it looks like it's going to do some resetting on the Vanguard. Not that it's going to matter because it's going to get its hit in, but at the same time.
So here's my thing with it though. Chris already has a Huntmaster and he's got a Timberwatch Elf coming down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it might, I don't know. I just think even if Joseph deals with the Vanguard, he's going to have a heck of a time trying to deal with this Timberwatch Elf.
Chris cannot get the Vanguard, the Timberwatch Elf down this turn, however. He can only attack with if he doesn't attack.
Right. If he doesn't attack, he can get down the Timberwatch Elf.
And it looks like he's not going to attack.
Which I think is the smart play. I think you want to run out the Timberwatch as quickly as humanly possible.
So I guess the next question is, if you're Joseph, what do you spring?
I would go for the Timberwatch Elf here. The reason being is because you can just chump block the Vanguard. It's not really ideal, but I mean, what else can you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you chump block the Vanguard, especially if he just happened to have drawn like an Ephemerate, like he could always just Ephemerate the thing in the Familiar in response to
sure,
the Vanguard. But if Joseph were to, or if Chris were to draw a Quirion Ranger as opposed to a Timberwatch Elf, then draw a Quirion Ranger in conjunction with the Timberwatch Elf, this game just ends instantly.
Well, the game did end because Joseph did not go for Temporal Spring. He went for Mulldrifter. And I'm not sure why. I think that Temporal Spring does buy you a turn. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it buys you enough time.
Right.
But at the very least, because the way his mana was set up, Joseph would have been able to Temporal Spring the Timberwatch Elf and then also Memory Lapse it as well. And while it does mean you're going to be taking a decent hit, you're not dead, and then you have a draw.
Yep.
Now, it looked like his draw wasn't actually going to matter all that much. It was land and Memory Lapse, thanks to Mulldrifter. But it's still another turn. And with Mulldrifters, that's a few more draws. So I'm not sure why. It'll be interesting. I wish we had Joseph coming back in the booth to ask him about that line. I know he really does not like his chances in this matchup.
Yeah. I'm wondering what Joseph is bringing in here. I see.
It looks like he did nothing.
That's interesting. I feel like I would have tried to at least bring in some of the Weather of the Storms and tried to gain a bunch of life out of that. I don't like this hand from Joseph that much.
It looks like there's one card off screen. Meanwhile, I love this hand from Chris.
Wow, yeah. Scattershot with double Quirion Ranger. That's beautiful. Because then that just deals with any and all Mulldrifters.
Yeah, but at the same point,
Birchlore? That's really good.
Joseph is missing the green. He was missing the green mana he would need for Temporal Spring, but he currently has 2 Temporal Spring. And this is going to be interesting. I'm not sure how things are going to play out the next couple turns, but it looks like Chris has a chance to just have some really explosive mana draws very quickly.
Right, and that's what's going to kind of come down to. It's kind of come down to who gets the better draw. We're seeing Joseph is sitting on some counter magic here, but that may not really be enough. It really depends on how. Yeah, so Joseph's gonna bounce back that Priest of Titania. But that's not really gonna matter when Chris can just dump out Priest of Titania, and then a whole nother single mana or single 1-drop creature.
Yeah, so I think, Memory Lapse is this really interesting card. It doesn't see a ton of play, but it's very powerful in the fact that it stops a draw, especially with a deck that can be choked on mana when you're taking a draw and basically putting it on top, and someone uses up all their mana for the turn. That's really good if you are the Memory Lapse player. But as we're seeing from Chris, Elves can just spit out a ton, just an absolute ton of stuff very quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that even though it looks like Joseph is going to get the Archaeomancer Ephemerate quote-unquote lock with Temporal Spring, I'm not sure it's going to be enough. It's only going to be eating one thing really a turn from now.
The one thing I will say, first off, I will say that I actually mismathed somehow with Chris's turn. I think I forgot to note the Quirion Ranger actually untapping the creature.
Yeah.
And so he was actually able to get down 2 1-drop creatures, not just the one. And wow, there's a Elvish Vanguard about to come down. It's going to get memory lapsed, but there's an Elvish Vanguard coming down. So the one thing this actually works out in Joseph's favor just a little bit is while Chris does actually have a decent amount of power on the board, it's not really doing a whole lot. It's just kind of there.
It's kind of just power and toughness.
Right, and it's very small. So there is a clock here, but it's only there's 3 more turns here. And that's assuming that Joseph doesn't put out any blockers, which, as we know, that's exactly what he's going to do this next turn.
Actually, that was really a huge draw because what happened, huge play rather, because Joseph memory lapsed both spells, it means that the Elvish Vanguard's still another turn away.
Yeah, and Joseph has the lock, basically. But at the same time, I think, and I could be wrong on the math here, and this is going to come down to just how good of draws Joseph actually has. But I think that Chris can literally just ignore the fact that Archaeomancer is there, swing out every turn, and just slowly whittle Joseph's health down enough that he dies in a couple turns still.
It depends, just because Joseph does have Temporal Spring in hand.
Right.
And he's sitting on 10 cards. So I think actually, I think that you're right. I think Chris missed his chance to start dealing damage last turn. And I actually think that turn is going to matter.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen here, though. It's definitely going to be pretty interesting seeing what we're gonna have going on here.
Chris is not going aggro, and I think that's a mistake. I think that
it is.
I think that he's just letting Joseph take over this game at this point.
Yeah, at this point, Joseph's probably just going to end up running away with this because that lock is in action now. Chris is
just drawing so many cards a turn. He's drawing so many cards a turn.
Yeah. Card advantage is very, very real here. And we're going to start seeing some cards probably go to the top of the deck pretty soon here. We have a Mulldrifter too. So we got actually...
We have a threat.
Yeah. So we're going to see probably not right now just because of the Scattershot Archer being on the battlefield. But we did see a Sunscape Familiar. So this is going to be... We're going to start going off here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
I saw the writing on the wall.
Chris saw it was coming. And
so Joseph steals a game.
He sure did. That was... Woof.
No, they're not changing anything. We're going to game 3.
Going right in.
Yeah. Let's see.
Joseph hand.
Both players have keepable hands.
Wow, Joseph's got the whole combo, and CVM just has, as far as I'm concerned, one crazy heck of a start. Both are great. Both hands are amazing.
Yeah, I think that if I'm Chris, I think I need to lead on the Priest just because you need to dump your hand as fast as possible, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the interesting thing is, what does Joseph lead on? Does he lead on Island, Preordain, or does he lead on Wilds to get the Forest? And I think you want to lead on Preordain?
I feel like you have to go for the Wilds here. But it's definitely a close call. Another thing that could very quickly change the tide of this game for Chris's favor is if we see a Quirion Ranger drawn this turn. If a Quirion Ranger gets drawn, heck, even a basic forest, really. If we see either a basic forest or a Quirion Ranger, what we'll then see is we'll be able to see a Priest of Titania come down, followed by a Birchlore Rangers, and then another Birchlore Rangers. But we saw a Winding Way. So we're just going to end up seeing Priest of Titania come down, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Joseph did go with the Evolving Wilds probably to get the Forest. And it's really going to come down to these next turns. Like this, not these next turns, obviously, but it's really going to come down to how fast Joseph can get the lock. If he
I think it's literally going to come down to this turn, because what we're going to probably see, if I were Chris, I would go, I would be playing both of those Birchlore Rangers, and then go Priest of Titania, taps for 4 mana. Well, now we saw a forest too. Into Winding Way. So then you have a whole ton of mana. And in fact, you probably wouldn't even tap the Priest here just yet, but because you can just tap your Llanowar Elf and the 2 Birchlores. Or you go for the Priest, whichever. And then you just draw a whole bunch of cards. There's
one of which is a Quirion Ranger.
Yeah, we found the Quirion Ranger, so we can definitely go pretty far now.
So I think the best thing for Chris to see here is 2 copies of Timberwatch Elf. Because that makes it very hard for Joseph to do anything that matters.
And Chris is doing this correctly. Well, what I probably would have done there is I think I would have played the Winding Way first to try and see what we saw.
He bricked.
Yeah, very much so. Ended up throwing a Lead the Stampede in the graveyard too, with some forests. But at least those forests are out of the play here. That's kind of a big deal, actually.
Yeah, but I think what Chris has to do is slam. Cast the Timberwatch Elf, but just slam.
Yeah.
Because
come on and slam.
Yeah. I mean, because what ends up happening?
To the jam.
Joseph will play an Archaeomancer, but that
doesn't do anything.
No, he's going for Preordain. What can he find?
And that's probably what I would do too, because otherwise you're just literally just dead.
Joseph is trying to show us.
Yeah.
But
can't see it.
Yeah, I think
no matter what
Astrolabe.
happened. Yeah, it's not gonna do it. No matter what we saw there, we would have had to have gotten rid of that Timberwatch Elf somehow. So there it is. That was super fast.
Yep, Chris moves to 4-2. So right now he's in tie for first place into the playoffs with Brian Colville and Brian DeMars. So we have 3 players into the playoffs already, for sure. Next week, things are interesting. We have you at 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
We have Ricardo Montana and Michael Bondet both at 2-1. And we have Adam Yurchik at 3-0. So there are scenarios where it's going to be interesting. Someone's making the playoffs out of next week. If you run the table again, you might be able to actually be the only person to make it in next week. Depending on how the other matches fall.
Right. And it's going to be really interesting just to see how many people we actually get in, depending on how things go. And we still have to see just exactly how everything plays out. But depending on how things go, we may actually have to go past what our set limit is, where we said we're going to basically be going from 4-2 records onward, because there may only be like 4 or 5 people who actually qualify for these playoffs. And obviously want to have a little bit more than that.
Right now, the big thing is, can someone get to 5-1? If someone gets to 5-1, they're getting to the finals. Because at this point, if there's one person at 5-1, most likely person to do that is going to be Adam. He gets a bye right to the finals. He gets to just sit back for a week, watch everyone else duke it out, get to the finals. But if we have this scrum at 4-2, well, then things are going to get interesting. We got to figure it out. But we're going to take some time to do that. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It was a great night of Magic. Thank you to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this event. Thank you to Wizards of the Coast for helping to sponsor this event. Once again, Cool Stuff Inc., if you go and hit it's PPL 5, you'll get 5% off your order, and that doesn't stack with other customer rewards. And you can do that at CoolStuffInc.com.
Just think about all those sweet Pauper cards that you can get, especially with a lot of places are starting to pick up the format now on paper. I've actually been hearing, like, all around the country, places that normally wouldn't have run these kinds of events before suddenly are like, hey, we can actually run these for Planeswalker points, so let's do it. So the more you actually have your decks, more you just get out there, have decks ready to play, more people are going to want to pick this up. Format is fantastic. And
there's a Pauper Champs coming up at Magic Fest Vegas. There's a Pauper MCQ on Magic Online in a couple weeks.
The format is taking off. The MCQ especially is a huge thing for this format.
Yeah.
I think that is actually a very big telltale sign of how Wizards is treating the format moving forward.
Yeah.
And I'm actually planning on doing a nice little write-up about why I think that for next week in my article. And I'm very, very excited because it's huge. The fact that we're basically getting MCQs and basically what were PTQs on the same level as something like Legacy, which actually does get somewhat events and everything, might mean we might even see something like a Grand Prix in the future. Who knows? But
I mean, Grand Prix Magic Fest Portland's main event is to be determined. So fingers crossed. It is my birthday weekend, so fingers crossed.
Yeah. So this is it's all in all, it's very exciting and it's a fantastic time to be playing Pauper. So with that, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you all again. Have a good night. Feel better soon, Emma.
Yes, Emma. Thank you so much for letting me play and have a good night. Feel better.
See you next week, folks.